Marhaba, and welcome to the Matrix Green Pill, where real people connect.
Hello, and welcome back to the Matrix Green Pill podcast. I am Melvin, and today I am joined by my dynamic and beautiful co-host Hilmari, with whom I am co-hosting for the first time. Welcome, Hilmari. How are you?
Hey, Mel, thank you very much for that very nice intro. I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I am sustaining myself, is all I can say today, and our listeners will soon know why.
That's great. Today we are super excited to introduce Mariska Nell. She lives and breathes sustainability. In 2018, she decided to take the trash to the streets of the UAE by wearing all the trash she generated for everyone to see, and now has the country buzzing with questions about waste and how to reduce it.
But that was just the beginning, and she quit her corporate life to focus on her newly found passion for the planet. That also led to the birth of her popular podcast, Mama Earth Talk. Mariska, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's such a great honor to be on your podcast, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, so Mariska, I'm sure many of our listeners will already know you and the work you do. But for those who don't, could you give us background story of your origin and how you ended up here in Dubai?
Yeah, sure. So I am originally from South Africa. And in 2010, we moved from South Africa to Dubai for the first time. And then I spent a little bit of time in Australia. And in 2013, we moved back to the UAE. And yeah, I'm basically an artist that takes trash and turn it into treasure. And as you also said, I sometimes actually wear the trash as well. And I'm just an environmentalist and a host of the Mama Earth Talk podcast. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Nice. So one man's treasure is actually another person's trash, or the other way around. So now, how did you come to the big decision of quitting your corporate career and tackle sustainability?
That was an interesting one. Well, I came to a point in my career where I didn't really like what I was doing anymore. And at that point, I was heading closer towards 30. And I looked back at my life and I decided, you know what, there was always these few things that I wanted to do before I turned 30. And one of them was actually to go and climb Kilimanjaro. So I decided, well, there's time's running out. I need to get in it. So I started training. I booked my trip and I literally hiked and summited Kilimanjaro, which was a life-changing experience.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah, and so it was really, seeing nature and experiencing that I just kind of thought to myself, wow, you know what, 10, 20, 30 years from now, I want people to still experience that and to, have that feeling that I had when I did that. So I kind of on the mountain, and I did it on my own. My husband and some of my friends, they literally dropped me at the last minute. So I was hiking, this thing with only a few people that was in our group, but no one I knew. So it was very challenging in that sense as well. But it was probably about a week after I summited that I visited a very dear friend in Cape Town. And he's actually a very well-known South African artist, Lionel Smith. And as I was in his studio, we're talking and, just having a laugh. And there was something that he said to me that really stuck with me. And he just said, at some point in your life, you need to do what you love and love what you do. And after he said that, I just kind of looked at my husband and said, I'm quitting my job because I'm not loving what I'm doing anymore. And the Sunday I got back after my South African trip, I handed in my resignation. And as they say, the rest was history.
Wow, what an amazing story. Incredible. Now, I know that you're an excellent artist and I love your work and how you incorporate everyday items into your art, like the coffee capsules and plastic water bottles. So Where do you get your inspiration from?
That's a hard one. I get inspired by the craziest things, or just by looking at stuff, and also different issues. I mean, my first artwork that I actually created was with single-use coffee capsules, and that was created or started by just me literally standing in front of the coffee machine, looking at this beautiful orange capsule. And I was just like, this is so beautiful. I can't believe we throw this away or even recycle it. This needs to be like given a second chance in life. And that kind of led me thinking and exploring of what can I do with this. And then obviously the first coffee addiction lamp was started. And since then, I really, learned a lot more about these capsules, how they are recycled, why people would use them, how wasteful they are. And that kind of led me into thinking that, I need to do more than just create art. I need to educate people through my art as well, to tell them what are the different issues. Like, I've created a series of artwork made from single-use plastic bottles as well, which was titled 1 million bottles per minute. And because that was the current rate we were buying single-use plastic bottles in. And I just wanted to kind of take that and show people that, this is what our single-use habits have become, and that we kind of need to act up on, trying to reduce it. So yeah, that's kind of how the artwork started.
Fantastic. And really such an important message. We don't talk enough about it. So to have someone bringing it to the light and making people conscious of it is really a fantastic thing that you are doing. So are they just art though, or do you create something? Can your art be used for everyday life?
Yeah, so obviously my artwork, there's different artworks that I've created. I've done quite a few now. I've got a lot of canvases that's actually paintings that's got a mixed medium combination of like recycled materials in the background that forms like a whole image in itself. But I've also created functional furniture pieces. So there was a few benches that I've made from single-use plastic water bottles. I've also made quite a few lamps. So obviously it's the lamps for me is still one of my most beautiful ones, because it's actually a really awesome lamp to look at. But the moment you flick that switch and it turns on, it's like forming this like lighting art as well, with all the different flowers.
Nice.
So yeah, so there's definitely functional pieces as well. And I do try to work on different collaborations as well, so I can kind of combine, a message with something. So before I actually create an art piece, I do look at the functionality of it, and also consider what's going to happen to the piece afterwards as well, that it's not just something that I make and after the campaign's over, it's getting sent to a landfill, because that's defeating the whole purpose of why I do this.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely. And those lamps of yours are so beautiful. If anyone hasn't seen them, they need to go and check you out on your Instagram. They are fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay, so you've clearly given this a lot of thought, and you've gone in depth into the subject of sustainability. And I see that you clearly have no fear of heights, since you've been scaling Kilimanjaro. So I want you to cite some examples of how exactly we can replace stuff in our daily life.
Oh, that is a very interesting question. So one thing that I would really say to anyone is, because, we're totally different, unique humans. So what I would consider as stuff that's an issue for me, you probably won't consider that as an issue, or you might feel some of these items are really necessary. So one of the first things that I would recommend is for someone to actually go and do a bin audit. And I've got a link on that on my Instagram account as well. And, have a look at what is some of the issues that you personally use a lot of. So some of the single-use items that end up in a bin because you've used it. And after you've determined kind of what is these items, then select one item, whether it's a single-use plastic water bottle, whether it is your coffee capsules, or actually coffee cups that when you go to the store and grab a takeaway, look at one of those items and see how you can make that a habit change. And once you've got the one thing under control, then go and look at the second thing and the third thing, and, make them really habits, because there's no point in us trying to change our entire life overnight, but, we can't manage, and then we just give up. So, take one thing at a time, one step at a time, and make it an actual habit.
That's very practical advice.
It is, and I think I'm going to do that today. Though, let me just come back to the word bin audit. Is that something that actually exists, or is that something that you coined together?
Well, it is something that a lot of people's been doing, a lot of people's been auditing a lot of stuff. So I've seen a few people do bin audits, and I've just kind of broken it down to make it easier and created a little chart for you just to go and tick off what it is that you put in the bin. So it's basically to audit what your habits is with your bin. We don't have a bin in our house, so it will be a little bit difficult for me to do a bin audit at this point. But, it's something that's a personal thing. And you obviously can't change what you don't know. So the moment you know what is the problem items and how much stuff you actually send to the landfill or send to recycling, because for a lot of us, we empty our bin every single day, and we've got no idea what the total volume of stuff is we throw away. And that is, again, why I actually wore my trash suit for 30 days, so that people can see exactly, if you did not have a weigh or you did not have a bin, this is pretty much what you're sending to a landfill in 30 days.
Okay,
Wow,
that's practical.
Yeah, very interesting. But I need to ask this. What do you mean you don't have a trash bin at home?
We don't have a trash can at all in our house. So we don't make waste. We do have some recycling. So normally I would wash all of our recycling and I would put it in a recycling, small little container, because it's very minimal. And all of our food waste and stuff gets composted. So that goes directly into our freezer until, that container is full and I can actually go and compost the whole lot. But yeah, stuff that we send to the landfill is literally nothing. So there's
Incredible.
No point in us having a bin that's not going to have anything in it.
Yeah, I don't think that seems very possible in Dubai and UAE currently where we are. Though as someone who has lived on multiple continents and you are immensely popular over here, so let me ask you this. Do you think the Dubai and the UAE as a whole, do they have a long way to go in terms of being more sustainable and environmentally friendly, or are they already there?
So that's a very interesting question for me because, when people think about Dubai, there's so many things we need to consider as well when it comes to sustainability. So firstly, the UAE is a very young country. If you compare it to a lot of countries in Europe, they've been recycling and they've been doing these educational programs for decades already, whereas the UAE is only catching up to that now. But I'm really excited to see what's happening. I mean, you've got a new recycling facility from Beer that's being, built or almost finished at this point. That's really going to have some amazing initiatives. And also the educational part is we're seeing more and more of that happening. But one of the issues that the UAE has is there's so many expats, the majority of the population is expats. And many of them, unfortunately, I feel when they go to their home countries, they would recycle or they would, kind of have all of these good habits. And the moment they step foot in the UAE, they lose all of that and they don't do all of the recycling what they would have if they were living in Germany or in Australia. So that's another aspect that the UAE kind of have to deal with as well. And, you've got all of these people coming from different countries and each country is doing it different. So at the moment, no one knows what to do exactly. So it is a hard thing, but I think, if there's a country that can pull it off, the UAE is definitely that country. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the next 10 years because they are definitely leading in many ways.
Oh, that's very interesting. So let's shift focus a bit and let me ask you, what can companies and businesses do to work towards to being more sustainable and environmentally friendly?
Well, there's quite a lot of things that businesses can do. And I mean, as a company, I feel they need to look at ways how they can switch to go from a linear economy system, which the majority of businesses are following at the moment, and see how they can implement more circular economy business principles and how they can change their supply chain and things so that it is more focused on circular economy. And that will have a massive impact. And, you're seeing, again, just as I mentioned with the expats that doesn't really, have the UAE as a home and they don't bring their home habits. So the same is for businesses. So these businesses often, think that they only going to be in the UAE for say 10 or 20 or maybe not even that long years. And, they want to try and make as much money as possible in those time. So people sometimes think that sustainability has to be more expensive. And, that's why they tend to move away from that. But in actual fact, there's many ways that they can do that without having to cost an arm and a leg. And I think especially in the UAE, you are seeing more customers also demanding, not to get a single-use plastic straw, or, companies that want to know where these products are made and how it's made. And I think, if businesses don't want to lose customers, and especially, the majority of these more, I would say, environmental people might want to spend a little bit more for a better quality and longer lasting product as well. So then you're going to lose out on that target market as well if you don't grow and develop with that.
So as consumers, we can have an impact on how businesses operate by speaking with our dollar or our
exactly
euro.
Every single day that you spend that money, you are voting for the products that you want to use. So if you're not buying sustainable products, then you are actually going and saying it's okay to, make unsustainable products because I'm going to buy it. But if you say no and you tell those companies, I'm no longer going to buy your product because you're using single-use plastic, or, you don't have refillable options, so I am rather going to go down the road to another company that offers that, then, if enough customers do that, they will have to change. Otherwise, they're going to lose business.
Yep,
Are enough customers doing that?
Well, I would really encourage people to do that, because if you want to see that change, you need to be that change.
Okay.
That makes absolute sense. Now, do you think that businesses who adopt sustainability practices can still keep the same level of profitability?
I think so, because we have kind of this idea that it's super expensive to be more sustainable. In some cases, if you think of switching to solar energy or something like that, your initial costs might be expensive. That's a fact. But you need to look at it a little bit more long term as well. And, over 10 years, how much electricity are you going to save by not having to pay that bill, but now you've got solar? And it's exactly the same with a lot of the different, obviously, each company is different, but, there's so many ways how they can think a little bit longer term, and they will see the profitability in time. But again, that is a little bit hard for the UAE, because sometimes a lot of people are only thinking, I'm only going to stay in this country for 5 years, so there's absolutely no sense in putting solar panels on my roof because I'm not going to see the benefit. So you do have that kind of obstacle to get over. But I definitely think, as soon as businesses start thinking that way, they will make changes that will have an impact, for the future.
Okay. Yes. So what is your vision for sustainability in the region?
Oh, well, I'm very hopeful for the whole region there. I mean, if you just think of UAE, they are, building, leading recycling facilities. And also with Expo 2020, that's going to be Expo 2021, I think. But that's going to be the most sustainable expo that's ever been held. And, for the UAE to set that is amazing. And if you think of all of the different initiatives and, they've got competitions that's going on to try and find more sustainable ways on how to do different things. If you look at all the agriculture that's happening in the UAE and especially in Abu Dhabi, with great initiatives, I'm really hopeful, and I definitely think that sustainability is going to be the way forward, and there's a lot of changes that still needs to be made to get there. But I think if there's a country that can do it and a region, it should be them.
Okay, so I'm just going to dive straight into something that's been on my mind ever since I read about you. We mentioned in the intro, and you spoke about it as well briefly, about your bold move to wear trash and step out for the world to see. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes. So I decided, I wanted to, I was obviously talking a lot about, reducing waste and everything, but I wanted to kind of give an illustration of what it would look like if there was no away, because, we always throw all of our trash away. So if we took that away totally out of the equation, and we all have to wear whatever trash it is that we were making, then, that's what we would look like. So in 30 days, I had about 65 kilos of trash that I was like walking around and trolleyed around. So that was kind of the idea behind it. It was just to literally be a visual illustration of what it would look like if there was just no way.
30 days and 65 kilos. Is that what you said?
Yes.
And is that normal or is that on the higher side?
That's on the lower side, actually, because, on average, we make between 2 to 3 kilos of waste every single day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that's a number that's going to scare people when you think about it.
Yeah. Now, you label yourself as someone who is zero waste. Can you unpack that for us? What does zero waste really mean?
Yeah, sure. So I actually wrote a whole blog on exactly what is zero waste on my website as well. But, so many people define it differently. But for me, literally zero waste means to send zero waste to a landfill. So nothing that we make actually goes to a landfill. We do recycle still, but living this lifestyle, for me, I feel it shouldn't mean that you should now recycle more. You should actually reduce your habits and make it in such a way that there's no real need to recycle, because you just don't generate that waste at all.
Excellent. Yes. So what is the biggest challenge that you face when staying zero waste?
Well, sometimes there's quite a few. Obviously this is a lifestyle that I've been doing now for more than 2 years now. And it definitely didn't happen overnight. So some of the stuff that I sometimes feel is challenging is, when you go to a store and they don't have bulk shopping. So then, you obviously need to find creative ways in purchasing stuff. And it's one of the key things about living this lifestyle is to kind of be prepared. So even though it sounds like it's a lot of work, it's actually not. And it has also helped us to save a lot of money, because, we kind of buy only what it is that we need. And when I go to the store, I make sure I come prepared, and I know, okay, I'm going to buy rice and I'm going to buy cheese. So I need containers for all of those things. So I don't feel that I have to grab a single-use plastic bag that the items are in, and like produce bags and things like that. We really don't need to use all the single-use items, but sometimes we feel we do just because it's there.
Right.
Okay. So that's a complete lifestyle change is what you are saying it is, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it didn't happen overnight for me. For me, I also just started with one habit, and once that one habit was, under control and I kicked that bad habit, I went to the next one. And, at some point you run out of bad habits and, you find yourself as zero waste. So yeah, but it definitely, it's a journey.
I still think the biggest challenge for me would be to get my head around wearing trash and stepping out. So any plans of launching like a trash fashion label in UAE sometime soon?
I might, maybe get some few people, if they do a lot of littering, we might give them a trash suit to wear for about 30 days.
That would be a good punishment. I like that.
Okay, so you make it sound a lot easier than it probably is. So what advice would you give people on how they can easily become more eco-friendly?
Literally just like start where you're at. You do not have to have the most sustainable water bottle to be sustainable. You do not have to have the most expensive reusable bag to use a reusable bag. Start where you are at and see what it is that you've already got that can help you live more sustainable. If any of us go into our kitchen cupboards, you would most probably find, reusable containers, and use that, because, the sustainable option is probably the option that you've already got. We don't have to go and buy stuff to be sustainable. So I would just say, start where you're at and look at things that would be easy for you to change. Because, if people look at my lifestyle and they look at everything I do, they might think, whoa, this is too much. I can never do that. But for them, it might be easy to, when they buy 3 tomatoes, instead of grabbing a single produce bag, to just have them loose in their basket, and have the sticker put on the box, or maybe next time even bring a reusable produce bag. So it's definitely those little things that over time starts adding up.
Okay. And, when we talk about being eco-friendly and stuff, are there any big eco-myths that you think exist out there that people generally tend to believe?
Yeah, there's quite a few. For me, recycling is probably one of the biggest myths that there is. And this should definitely not put people off of recycling. But, for some reason, most of us think, if we recycle, it's great, we're doing our part. And that single-use plastic bottle, it's okay for me to use it because I recycle it. And, you think there's like this magical process that happens, and that single-use plastic bottle is going to go in, and exact same single-use plastic water bottle is going to come out on the other side. And that's not really the case. I really urge people to go and see if they can visit a recycling facility and see what it is, because every single time plastic gets recycled, it actually gets downgraded. And, obviously, yes, it gets reused, and it, plastic can be recycled a few times, but we shouldn't just use products because it can be recycled. And especially if we feel that, recycling is such an important thing, I definitely think that we need to then also purchase products that is made from recycled material instead of just like virgin plastics. So I think that for me is kind of the myth that, everything will be okay if we recycle.
Oh, and I think generally we do tend to think that everything will be okay somehow without playing our part in it. We always think someone else will do whatever is required, but we never put the onus on ourselves, do we?
Exactly.
So Mariska, how can we continue to raise awareness on the importance of being environmentally friendly, especially in the region?
I definitely think, obviously by voting with our money every single day that we spend it, that's obviously a big one, because that can really have some effect. And also to get involved with different organizations, try and see whatever your passion is, if it's going hiking or if it's actually the ocean, try and see if there's not an organization that's doing some good that you can become part of, or, volunteer, whether it's a beach cleanup, go and volunteer maybe with ASRAC whenever they've got one. There's so many different things that we can actually do. So first of all, just try and get involved, and also for ourselves as well, try and see if there's not anything that you can do even in your home to make a difference, and even where you're at the office, for your family or wherever, try and spread these little ripple effects, because they definitely add up with time.
So each of us has to take the onus on ourselves to pull our weight in this.
Exactly. And I mean, a lot of people would say, yes, the government needs to, take a stand on this. Yes, they do, but we also need to do our part. And, if enough people contact, the different government agencies, or wherever you are, change is about to happen. We just need our voices heard, and we'll definitely get there in time. But we need to take some ownership as well.
Yeah, and your voice is clearly heard. I mean, not just in everything else that you do, but even through your artworks. And we've seen that your artworks are really popular with the celebrities. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really fortunate to have some of my artwork with some really big names. So like one of my favorite humans, Trevor Noah, who's also South African. He's got one of my art pieces. I did a piece for him of
nice.
him and his mother. Adrian Grenier, who I actually did a recycling tour with as well. That was quite spectacular. So I've done a piece for him and Lonely Whale as well. DJ Black Coffee, that's also another South African whom I just love. In the UAE, I've done stuff for Anas Bukhash, Kris Fade. I've also done stuff with Costa Coffee as well to create awareness.
Right.
And then some of the other celebrities was Mason Plumlee, that plays in the NBA basketball. And yeah, someone that's really inspired my life as well is Gary Vaynerchuck, who I was fortunate enough to create a piece of him and his mother.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, so I think you're quite a celebrity in your own right, and not just through your artworks, but you also do have a podcast. And being on this podcast, do you want to tell us, how did you decide to start it, and how did the name Mama Earth Talk come about?
Yeah, that's quite a story. Well, so in 2018, I was obviously walking the streets of the UAE carrying my own trash. And I got a lot of people that asked questions, and a lot of the questions that I got was very similar. So I just decided there has to be some place where I can kind of capture all these answers and provide people with really, some knowledge and some inspiration as well. And I just decided, well, there has to be a way. And I decided I'm going to do a podcast. And if there was topics that I did not know a lot about but that's in sustainability, then I can get experts to talk with me about those topics. And so it was really a great idea. And yeah, so it started in 2018, and I've got over 121 episodes now. And
wow.
Thank you. So yeah, and the podcast name, that was actually, I struggled. I didn't know what I was going to call it. And one of my really best friends that's in the UAE, Marita, so she was actually wearing the trash with me in the UAE. And we always kind of had this like slogan where we said, Mama Earth has a voice, and it's us crazy birds. And so when I was thinking of a name, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to use that kind of the slogan, but I didn't know what to call it. And then it kind of hit, like Mama Earth. And, she needs to talk to us. And that's kind of what the podcast name became, like Mama Earth Talk. And I also refer to the audience as the crazy birds, because we kept that slogan as our slogan. So yeah, that's the name, Mama Earth Talk.
And I'm worried that just in case people don't listen to you, pretty soon those crazy birds are going to be angry birds, given we are doing how we are polluting Earth. So this podcast of yours is obviously it's very popular, and you've got some pretty big names appearing on the podcast. Now, for us, when we do our podcast, we generally pick topics that we are passionate about or that we care about. And Hilmari and me are both big on sustainability, which is why you are here. So how do you decide on who to invite, especially these celebrities, and how do you get in touch with them and get them to be guests?
That's a very interesting one. Obviously, I've been on this journey for some time, and I've built up quite a network of a lot of different people. So a lot of the times, these guests would be either someone that I know, or it would be someone that's recommended by someone that I know. But I do spend a lot of time researching and trying to find, these people that's just doing amazing work all over the world. And then I just kind of contact them, and I've met so many amazing people along the way. I mean, I had the people from Lonely Whale on my podcast as well. And when I went to New York, I was fortunate enough to actually, spend some time with them. So for me, it's not just the people that's being a guest on the podcast. It's really connections that I've made. And, these people kind of become part of my journey. And, we do catch up whenever possible. So it's really been phenomenal for me, and it's just great to see how the podcast has actually grown. And I can still remember it was one of the first podcasts I did. I kind of had these 3 sustainable superheroes that I absolutely loved, and within 121 episodes I managed to interview all 3 of them. So that was really, really amazing for me to see how it's just like kind of developed and grown.
Fantastic.
It's quite a journey for your podcast.
Yeah, I mean, really, you've had an amazing journey so far. Can you tell us about one of your proudest moments during your journey?
Wow, there's been so many. I mean, for me, it would probably be, if I look at my artwork, to actually have one of my art pieces being exhibited at Dubai Airport, which was, the busiest airport in the world, and also some of these people who I absolutely admire. There was a lot that Gary Vaynerchuck has done for me over the last few years, and his kind of videos and stuff has inspired my life. And to know that my artwork is actually in his house, and he sees it on a daily basis, that's just something I can't just comprehend. It's really some of those moments that I'm just like, wow, I'm so grateful and so thankful that I get to do what I love every day and be part of this, and have these people love my artwork enough to actually share it and look at it every single day.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, that is. And you're reaching out to a wider audience through your podcast. Now obviously that involves the use of technology. So how big a role does technology play in sustainability? And do you consider it to be a bane or a boon?
So I think technology is a great thing. I'm definitely for it. I think there's a lot that's happening, especially if you just think with energy wise, like solar energy in the last few years, how far it has come. We've got like batteries that can store so much more energy. If you look at electric vehicles, a few years ago you could barely get 50 kilometers out of one charge. Now it can go for hundreds of kilometers, some vehicles. So I definitely think there is so much we can be excited for when it comes to technology. But I do think that we shouldn't just use it as kind of this like crutch, as I'm going to be unsustainable, but I'm driving an electric vehicle, so I'm good, I think we need to look a little bit further than just giving ourselves a pat on the back just for doing one thing. But in the same kind of voice, I'm also saying that because you're doing one thing, it's one step at least. But, let's try and see how we can take that extra step and, move a little bit forward. But I'm really excited to see what the future is going to bring, and how technology can have influence on sustainability and the future.
Lovely, very nice. So before we start winding down here, what is the one question I love to ask everyone is, what is one thing that you do on a daily basis, regardless of how busy you are?
Well, one thing I've started doing this now for some time, is every single day I would look at 3 things that I'm grateful for during the day. And obviously in the evenings, I would look back at my day and, kind of tell myself what's the 3 things I was grateful for in this day. And it has really helped me to also, when there's days which you feel like, oh, there's nothing that I can be grateful for in this day, seriously, you kind of look for those grateful moments. And it's really had me, kind of change perspective on how I see the outcome of the day as well.
Right. It can turn what could have been a negative thought or a negative day to end it up with something positive, some positive thoughts in yourself.
Exactly.
I think most people are sort of wishing 2020 to be over and looking forward to 2021.
Definitely.
What is 2021 looking like for you? Do you have any exciting plans? Anything we can look forward to hearing about?
Oh, well, we had many exciting plans that COVID came and ruined, but it's about getting past them, and we're here, we're healthy, so I'm grateful for that. I am hopefully we can put a highlight on 2020 and actually adopt a dog. That would be my super highlight. We've pushed back our plans for a tiny house with about another 6 months to 9 months. So that was the big thing that I wanted to get done in 2020. That's not happening. But yeah, I'm grateful for the lessons that we've learned, and that next year we can do even bigger and greater things.
Excellent.
And I think we all do. We all look forward to 2021 being vastly different from 2020. And
I hope so.
Okay, so now we're just going to enter the fun part of this show. It's kind of like a game show, and we call it the rapid fire round. And we have prepared a few questions for you. So are you ready to dive straight into it?
Yeah, what do you mean? The first part was already fun, so this one will probably be more fun.
Even more fun. Yeah.
Okay, my
the
bad.
hits keep on coming. Okay, we'll start with an easy one. Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Okay. What is your go-to comfort food?
Ooh, chocolate.
I think you gave her a lead over there. Okay. So I'm just going to take something that you had mentioned earlier about educating people and stuff. And if you could add one subject or topic to school curriculums, what would it be?
Sustainability, or eco something. Yeah.
Okay, I figured that. What's your favorite movie?
Ooh, 10 Things I Hate About You and Drive Me Crazy. Those two.
Okay.
Still diehard
Okay.
fans.
Okay, and what do you do to relax?
I actually work in the garden. I find it very relaxing.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's interesting.
What is one thing you could never live without?
Ooh, I would say my water bottle, the reusable water bottle.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. And the last one, besides 2020 and COVID-19, what is the one thing that you are afraid of?
I would say snake.
Yeah, I think that's high on the list for many people. So now
Not a fan.
No. Now, before we wrap up, we would like to do our segment called the Green Pill Moment. So we would like to ask you, what was your Green Pill moment, the action or event that was a turning point for you or your career?
It was definitely exploring with my waste in my artwork, and literally taking trash and turning it into treasure, and how that education process of learning what this trash was and how we can prevent it, that was just life changing.
Okay, and I think our listeners will also treasure this podcast and your thoughts that you have shared with us. So thank you so much for sharing your fantastic and inspiring story, I must say, with us today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was a pleasure having you here.
I'm sure our audience will thoroughly enjoy this conversation as we did.
I hope
Thank
so.
you. Thank you so much. So before we say goodbye, could you please tell our listeners where they can find and follow you? We'll put this in the show notes as well.
Yeah, sure. So I'm pretty easy to find on most social media like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. They can just go Design by Mariska. So Mariska's Mariska. Or they can go onto the website, the mamaearthtalk.com. That's where the podcast is. And all of the links and everything is there as well. So that's where they can find me. And if you want to get in touch with me, probably the best way to do it is through Instagram. Just send me a DM. And yeah, would love to hear from your audience and what your thoughts are on this whole trash to treasure as well.
Fantastic. So thank you again so much for joining us today. We wish you all the very best, and we'll be following to see what is next for you.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It was great to take this green pill moment.
Fantastic.
If you enjoy our conversations, please like and subscribe. See you next Wednesday.